Greetings, all gallant sailors on YouTube. Welcome to Abyssal Recap. Today I will explain a horror sci-fi movie called A Quiet Place. Spoilers alert. Buckle up and take care. On the 89th day of the unknown alien invasion to Earth, a large number of residents disappeared one after another from the town, making it abandoned. A surviving family of 5 came to the supermarket to look for supplies. They were barefoot and cautious to make any noise. Not even dare to speak loudly. They could only use sign language to communicate. Because the monster has no sense of sight and smell, but with an extremely acute sense of hearing. Keeping quiet is the only way for survival. But the 4-year-old son Bo was not as cautious as his older siblings. He tried to reach out for a toy from the rack. Fortunately, his daughter Regan was quick to notice. She caught the falling toy, preventing it from making sounds. Bo admired the toy and wanted to take it home. The father, Lee, hurriedly removed the batteries and put down the toy, telling Bo that the toy was too loud to take with him, and that Bo seemed to understand but was actually confused. Regan felt his brother's pittiness. She secretly brought the toy back to her brother. But Bo hesitated for a moment and quietly took it along with the batteries. The family then walked home on a sandy path, passing a bridge when the silence was broken by the sudden sound of toy. Mother Evelyn curbed herself from calling his son. Lee ran towards Bo, but it was too late. The family of 4 suppressed their grief and self-blame. They lived in fear for another year. They tried their best to keep quiet and didn't dare to be careless. Lee had installed surveillance cameras around the house. There were 3 monsters lurking in the area. They had no vision, only eager to attack sound sources and armed with hard shells. Lee had been researching for their weakness, but was still unable to identify. At the same time, he also tried to use the radio to contact the outside world, but no one ever responded. Although living in such a dangerous situation, Lee and Evelyn did not despair, for she was pregnant with a new baby, bringing the family new hope. Daughter Regan was born with hearing disability and cannot tell whether there is sound. While living in a world where making a sound means instant death, it would be very dangerous for her. So Lee dived into research and made amounts of hearing aids for her, so that she shall sense the danger. But none of them worked. One day, Lee wanted to take Marcus out for fishing, but Marcus was feeble-minded, plus the monster might appear at any time. He was too scared to venture out. Regan wants to go, but Lee tells her to stay at home and take care of Evelyn. Regan has been in a self-blaming mood because of her brother's death, and Lee is unwilling to take her out, so she thinks that Lee still refuses to forgive her. Lee teaches Marcus how to fish at the river. When Marcus heard the sound of fish fluttering, he was scared, and Lee reassured him not to be afraid. They were safe as long as their voices did not overwhelm the sound of the river. Lee then took Marcus behind the waterfall and shouted under the cover of the sound of the water. Their long-suppressed emotions were released. The father and son had a rare heart-to-heart talk in vocal language. They met an old man on the way home, only to see the old man's wife killed by the monster. The old man could not repress his grief. Lee signed him to hold his grief. Do not make a sound. But the old man had nothing left to lose. He shouted loudly to get himself killed. Meanwhile, Regan is at home trying on the new hearing aid Lee made for her. She finds that Lee has succeeded this time. She missed her younger brother, so she headed to the road where he was killed and placed the toy onto his grave. Evelyn was carrying a bag of laundry out to dry and accidentally hooked a nail in the stairs. Fortunately, the sound is still within the safe volume, not attracting monsters. But by late afternoon, Evelyn found that she was about to deliver. Not expecting the day would come this soon, she rushed downstairs but stepped on the long nail. She withstood the pain but broke a photo frame. She knew that the sound would attract the monsters, so she turned on the warning light outside the house before patching the wound. The monster soon followed the sound to the house, and Evelyn was able to endure the intense pain of the delivery while finding the alarm clock and turning on the timer. The monster's attention is drawn away by the sound of the alarm clock, and Evelyn quietly hides in the bathtub to endure the pain to give birth. Lee came back and saw the red light from afar and knew that the monster was coming. So he asked Marcus to light fireworks to distract the monster. Belief in protecting Evelyn made him run quickly to the location where the fireworks were stored. It was only when the fireworks went off that Evelyn finally screamed out in pain. Lee came upstairs with his gun and saw the blood in the bathtub without Evelyn. He thought she had died, but who was not? Evelyn hid elsewhere with the baby she had just given birth to. However, the baby's cries attracted the monster. They quickly hid in the basement. The baby was put on a prepared oxygen mask, and then put into a soundproof container. It would be soundproof enough for both of them to rest. After settling his wife and baby, Lee went out to look for Regan and Marcus, who was ready to get back after setting off fireworks and quickly hid when he heard the monster. At the same time Regan saw the blooming fireworks, knew that the danger was approaching and rushed home. On the way there was a monster behind her. When the monster opened its ears to sense the surrounding, Regan's hearing aid emitted a splitting sound wave, and a high-frequency echo in response to the monster. The monster suddenly turned tormented and ran away. The two siblings rendezvoused and came up to the barn to wait for Lee's rescue. But the monster destroyed the pipeline, making the water float into the basement. When Evelyn woke up, she found that the monster had followed the sound of the water into the basement. She held her breath at the presence of the monster and carefully picked up the baby and slowly retreated behind the cascade. But the baby's grunting sound still attracted the monster. At the critical moment, the monster was suddenly appealed by a thudding sound outside the house, which was Marcus falling into the barn. The broken trapdoor snapped him down to the bottom, causing him to sink deep into the grain. Regan did not hesitate and jumped down, using a plank to rescue his brother. But the noise they made has attracted the monster. The siblings could only use the plank to block the attack. As the monster got close, Regan's hearing aid emitted the same ear-splitting noise. The monster broke through the barn and fled again. Lee was glad to see the children unharmed. But the monster was still nearby and did not leave, so Lee told Marcus and Regan to hide in the car. He confronted the monster. Marcus couldn't help but call out to his father. The monster heard the sound and turned to attack the car. Lee made his determination and signaled to Regan, expressing his love. Regan then realized that Lee never thought it's her fault. With his last breath, Lee screamed loudly to distract the monster so that his children could escape. Marcus started the car while his father being smashed by the fierce monster. Evelyn saw the death of her husband from the surveillance camera. But she has no time to grieve, her children still need her protection. The monster soon tracked her down, and Evelyn took her firearm aiming to the monster, but doesn't dare to fire because the sound of the gun will only attract more monsters. Regan saw Lee's handwritings on the board and learns that Lee had been looking for the monster's weakness. She suddenly recalled of her previous encounter. She tried to turn up the audio of her hearing aid. The monster received the abnormal frequency and became agitated. Regan then used the microphone to amplify the interference. The monster subsequently opened its shell in pain. Evelyn seized the opportunity to blast its head. The gunshot soon attracted two other monsters. But Evelyn and her children are ready for the retaliation. The rest of the story lies in its sequel, A Quiet Place Part 2. That's the end of today's video. If you do enjoy watching it, feel free to leave a like and consider to subscribe to the channel. And I will see you guys in the next one. Abyssal signing out.